those Scottie topics, because Scottie
I
did
just
go
want to say,
down. Yeah, go for
sorry,
it.
I just want to say one more thing about Grady Dick before I move on. I
Hmm.
heard an Italian coach one time. He was doing this clinic, and I thought it was an interesting point. He said, "Your hands set up, or sorry, your feet set up your hands set up your eyes." Now, what do I mean by that? As a shooter, get your feet set first, okay? And you're parallel to the basket. Number two, get your hands ready so you're ready to catch the ball. And ideally, you want it here. And then you set up your eyes to the basket. All the great shooters do it. Grady Dick is doing that right now. So I expect that to keep moving forward with him because he had a shot over Austin Reeves in that Lakers game. Austin Reeves is right here. Grady Dick was already set. He's got it in the pocket and he was ready to launch it. If he's not set, that gets blocked.
And I'll just say, I think why I like what he's doing now is sometimes, like, everyone says, oh, to Kenyon's point about playing the perfect basketball and moving it to the open man. Listen, man, sometimes it can't be that pretty as that, because sometimes if the man's open, he's meant to be open for a reason, right? So there was a situation where Grady in the first half where Grady could rotate and do swing over to Ochai in the corner. And in this case here, Grady's like, nah, I don't think that's the right play. I'm going to take this myself. And in some ways, being pretty doesn't get it done sometimes, because if being pretty is the case, we don't have a championship, because game 7 doesn't have
100%.
to be pretty. Okay.
Yeah.
Kawhi unloaded the clip and then some. It wasn't pretty, folks. And it can't be pretty all the time. And
Yeah,
play
he had a tendency, Grady, that is, to like kind of not shy away from contact, but he's going into contact, but not fully, especially when it's a one-on-one type of situation on the break and you're bigger than the other player. And sometimes when you are smaller than the other player, you need to go right at the person to draw the foul in those type of situations. Again, this is the execution that we need to learn and get through to
Well,
kind of
that
get there.
and that's where we talk about the quickness of understanding that. So a couple of games ago, when you mentioned, I think against Minnesota, he did do that where he was going to a smaller player and kind of floated it up and didn't finish it. Well, the other night in this case here, when he's attacking the Lakers, and I think also the Sacramento game, he was looking for blood when he went in there. Okay,
Yeah.
so he learned very quickly.
Yeah, so I guess before we go to the other thing, one other thing, people talk about like, is this Darko or whatever? I don't know. It's hard to say whether that's Darko. It could be a bit of both, but like, so I think we need to pump the brakes on over crediting Darko and under crediting Grady or whatever. What I will say is it's good that someone, whether it's Grady or coaching staff or whatever, I really don't care, that it is being recognized. I'm gonna, primarily give Grady the credit for it, and then, at least it's being recognized, shown in film more than likely, and then from there it's a takeaway, and then the next time he's in that situation he's learning, and that's exactly what you want to see. So and now can I go to Scottie, I guess. Perfect. So yeah, I think the thing with Scottie right now is that you don't I'll start it this way. It's really unfortunate that Scottie went down, because one of the things that we all wanted to see is as many games and as much of a sample size so that we could all evaluate, and as well as that this management can evaluate Scottie Barnes. We said it in the preview for the season where he was one of the evaluating what he is and how he can do that is one of the quintessential questions that we have for this team. So yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I'll actually let you guys start because you guys seem raring to go. So I'll let Beyond start from there,
I'm the
and you
one
take it
that's
wherever you want to go.
so maybe I should go. I mean, poor coach here just kind of caught in the crossfire in this case here. So
Yep.
I'll say it. I own the words. I got no problem with the quote take. So after the Charlotte game, I was looking at it. That was when RJ was kind of really starting to roll at that point, and I was looking at what Grady's doing. And I suggested, I think we have a space in this case here. Shout us out to Nelly. I posed the question here at the end of the game. It's like, hey, man, we got ourselves here a top two dynamic duos we discuss here that are playing well off each other. I suggested maybe it might be a good idea when Scottie comes back to kind of fall in as a third scorer on the team, a tertiary option for scoring on the team. Therefore, ergo playing into his strengths, which is facilitation.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that was controversial. We were having a good debate about on the space. Some people thought, no, that's not necessary to do so. Others in this case here saying, you know what, okay, I get what you're saying in this case here, but I get that. That's what debate's about. I'll say this up front. I'll tell folks here, the sound of my voice, and anyone else that wants to do clip art in this case here, I'll tell it for you guys too, so you can hear this part, you clip this part. I will speak about whomever I care to speak about on this team based on what I see and what I observe. So I clip that out when you say so. When it's said and done, I'm not running from discussing anybody. Be it in this case here, if it's Bruno Fernando or if it's Scottie Barnes. So when it's all said and done, I am doing so. Now, I may look at the game differently than others, especially at this stage of the franchise's history. I am not looking at wins and losses. Even the other night when I made the suggestion, I was not putting a target on who scores what points or who scores when they score the points. I'm just talking about what the roles would be defined as going forward. There's going to be nights in this case based on my idea. Scottie might be that dude that night. There's nothing wrong with that. But all I'm saying is I was looking at it from a facilitation standpoint. Now, I'll make this point as well, too, since the clip art artists don't like to put this part in here as well, too. In that same discussion, I also said up front that, hey, there's three ways, there's different models of building a team out. I didn't say the second option model, but I'll state that in this one. There's the first scoring option model for building a team. That's the one most people know. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, so on and so forth. That's usually about, majority of teams build that way. Scoring options, their number one option, usually their best player. There's also the second option one, which is much rarer than people think, which is that my best player is the second option. I have a guy in this case that's very capable of being the first option from a scoring standpoint, but he's not the best player in the team. I brought up in this case, at times in his career, Chris Paul played that role. Gary Payton, another perfect example of it. Where in this case, Rain Man scored more points, but everyone knew Gary Payton was that dude. All right. There is then the other model, which actually is much more familiar as a building block of how you build a team than people give credit to, which is the third option model. Your best player in this case has a real talent for facilitation. You may not be the guy in this case that's going to be your top two options all the time, but in this case, if you need a bucket with the right matchup, he's the guy in this season to make the straw that stirs the drink, to take a Reggie Jackson phrase for all you kids at home that know that phrase. If Scottie Barnes in this case is who's the best player on this team when it comes to facilitation, I will make that argument. Yes, he is. So if that's the case, why am I fighting what he is? Put him in the spots where he could be the best Scottie he can be, instead of putting him out 30 feet from the hoop, trying to break down defenses off the dribble. I thought we're all in this together to figure out what we could do to become the best team we could be. You see, this team. I figure out for this, not for back here, for this. So when it's all said and done, I am looking here to speak to a standpoint of what can make everyone better. And if we have two guys that say are more capable scorers from a shot-making standpoint than Scottie, it gets Scottie in a role where he could do so. And by the way, when I say third options for facilitation, here are some examples. Jason Kidd, pretty good player last time I checked. Steve Nash, pretty good player last time I checked.
Magic Johnson at times.
You're right, the ultimate example, Magic Johnson.
Which is someone who people like to compare to Scottie
right.
when connected to stuff like that. And I have also made that comparison. So it's like...
Right. So this
is never the number one option either.
No.
So maybe what you're saying is that, like, just because we're saying... Anyways, I mean, I interrupted you.
No, all I'll say is to finish up the point and tie this up with a nice bow since we're getting to Christmas season. I'm just going to say this. Folks, first thing, sorry to say it, man, but some of y'all need to do some research about some basketball history. Seriously. All right? If you're going to have actually legitimate discussions. I'm sorry. You're just not prepared for the discussion. Just being honest about it. 2, as I said before, I made it clear, I root for this team here. See, this team with the city here, Toronto. So what is best for the team of Toronto? I'm looking at that. Last point is, I am not wishing or hoping in this case the Raptors lose in this case here, but the damn management, the coach, and even a couple players have said this is a development season. I don't know what you want me to do. That's what I'm judging it on. That's what I'm judging on. How can we develop to get the best team possible? That's the rules they laid on the road this season. They knew that already, but they made it quite clear in the media press conference. I don't know what more you want. But all I'm saying is, man, like, folks, man, do better, man. Seriously. As a fandom, do better, man. And it's ironic on a 30th anniversary and now put in the first Raptor, this guy's jersey up here, that, that we built a fan base that's been so great and so popular, and in this case, so enthusiastic about the Raptors. But, man, you guys got to get better on the take-up, man. Seriously. You got to get better on the take-up. You got to get better at understanding your knowledge about the game and your knowledge about the history of the game and the knowledge of the history of this team. Because it's really getting embarrassing. It really is. That's my 2 points. You know where to find me. Comments below. Like, that's what I got to say about that.
Yeah, Coach, do you want to go first, or would you like me to go?
You go first, and then I'll go.
Okay, let me just get this through. So yeah, basically, here's my thing. First of all, if you're going to clip someone, which you shouldn't really be doing it straight up, at least give the full context. There was points in that conversation where I agreed with Beyond entirely, yes, and then there's other points where we disagree, and this is why when people push back or suggest that we aren't adversarial enough with our show, we're not trying to put that type of show out there. You come to Basketball Rewind, you're coming for a particular type of show. If you want another type of show, or a praise Scottie show, or a praise, whatever, or Fox News of the Raptors, go to those shows. That's why this is the beautiful thing about the internet. If you get tired of this show, you can go, come back. Basketball Rewind is still going to be there. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing, and that doesn't mean I'm not open to feedback, but I do think it is important to kind of put that out. My thoughts on Scottie have been very clear cut, and that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to change and shift your thoughts as you get in more information. That's not how it works, right? So at some level, there have been times watching the Raptors throughout Scottie's career where I have said that he can be an MVP. And now if I critique him and say, when everyone on the timeline is saying, he could do all this or whatever, and I'm like, let's pump the brakes and let's see what he can do, because this is the first time, and even the president of basketball operations is saying, let's see what he is. I don't know, when asked point blank, is he the man? I don't know if he's the man, but we'll see. We'll sure find out, kind of a thing. At that point, like, I'm not being harsh by saying he's not the guy right now. If he's going to be the guy, then you got to go take it. We have a free-flowing offense. And what that means is that everyone gets a turn. So if you want to be the man in that sense, where you're the number one option and you're a heliocentric person and all that kind of stuff, if that's what you want, then go take it, right? I feel like some of the critique or some of the discourse that's coming around Scottie Barnes is not really, it's coming from people that don't really know what they even want. It's like, on one hand, you want everyone to have a turn. On the other hand, when other people take that turn and they're like, I gotta eat, it's like, oh, well, no, it's got to go to Scottie Barnes. What exactly do you want? Figure that out first, come back, then let's have a conversation about it, and we can see if that makes sense. Scottie Barnes right now, skill-wise, is not the most skilled player on this basketball team. Now, some people are going to go, oh, I got to go in the comments and hold on. I do think that as the team currently is constructed, he has the highest potential if he reaches all of his skill check marks. If you want to have a conversation about the analytics of that, this is what I said to someone not that long ago, is, okay, you got to be careful of that, because if you're going to pick and choose when you're going to talk about VORP or BPM or whatever, it's just a couple games ago, right before that Denver game, which was his best game, Grady Dick had a better VORP number than Scottie's, which was a negative VORP. Do I think that Grady Dick has at his peak potential, if he reaches his 99th percentile of he squeezes all the juice from the lemonade or from the lemon that could be his talent and progression, who's a better player if they both reach the 99th percentile? Of course Scottie could be better. He's just a bigger, stronger player. That's without question. But right now, Scottie needs to I don't want to say pass, shoot, and dribble, but in a sense, he needs to learn some of those skills at a much higher level, especially now that he is the top dog. There's no one else, and he is being raised up as the franchise guy. It is what it is. This is the sport, and it's yes, he's a young player, but he's been in the league for 4 years, and these are the questions that we're both going to talk about, assess, evaluate from week to week. If he has a good week, I'll say he has a good week. If he has a bad week, or if he struggles, like times when he was, I see a lot of positives. There are times when he has been in situations where, you could see the wheels are turning. How do I get to this footwork or whatever? But he's still at the beginning of it. I think the other thing too is primarily what I said and I've repeated and asked for and beyond is asked for. Coach maybe a bit more diplomatic, and I'll let him speak for himself, but we've all asked for consistency. To be a number one, you have to be consistent, especially on a championship level team. Otherwise, you can't be a number one, and sometimes you can't even be a number two unless your number one is that good and that consistent. You need to know what you're getting from night to night. And I've said before, and this is my primary complaint, is that Scottie Barnes right now, yes, he is young. He's also very emotional as a young player, and he's learning how to be that way. Now, the first reaction is, well, Luka does it. I give Luka the same flack. I've said it on this channel that Luka lost the Worlds in part because he got too emotional and got kicked out of a game. That's not good. And I've seen Scottie Barnes at times get emotional within the play of the game and either, I'll even use what his staunchest supporters will say is like, it's mentally exhausting to do X, Y, and Z when he at times was not the number one guy, right? For example, in Dallas, where Nick Nurse was pretty pissy with him in terms of giving up on Luka, and that wasn't the first time that game. And then the game before, he didn't even close out properly on Tyler Hero. I don't want to do this, right? I don't want to be the guy to say, to defend my take, and to defend my take, I have to go and say, well, look at all these times when this kid goofed up. That's not fun to do. It's not a fun conversation. But I'm trying to say, like, we can have a nuanced conversation about what's going on. There have been times when he has needed to step up from an energy and effort kind of standpoint, and especially now that he's the number one guy, I think that is a fair request of someone who is the number one guy, or the franchise player, I should say. Whew. Is there anything that I've said that you guys want to question before Coach has his take? Feel free to push back, honestly.
No, I don't really have anything else to say about that. I mean, not really. I mean, it's your take. I got, I said before, I got no issues with it.
Okay, now's the time to be adversarial with me if you want to be.
Yeah, we have
your take.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Coach?
I think it's what sometimes gets lost in this is that everybody has their own take, and that's fine. So I have repeatedly said I only care about process this year. And Masai kind of was making my point a little bit on the broadcast when he was on for, was it the Sacramento Lakers game? He said, we're not really looking for wins. We're looking for wins in a different way. And that's basically what I've been trying to say for about a week now is I'm looking for process. So a win for me is seeing RJ develop into a 25 plus per game scorer, at least for the time being. Seeing Grady Dick take a jump from under 10 points a game last year to about 20 now. Now, some of that is due to the injuries, as quickly in Scottie. That's fair. But regardless, this young man's confidence is up. And now you're starting to see what exactly Grady Dick can offer this team. It's been somewhat a blessing in disguise for Grady to have some of these injuries because now you're really starting to see what he can do. And when these guys come back, that's going to be the question, how you put all these pieces together. And that's my biggest thing with this whole thing with the Toronto Raptors. Not just Scottie Barnes, not just RJ Barrett, not just Emmanuel Quickly. How do all these pieces fit together? That's what I'm most excited about, but I'm also the most curious about. I rip on Darko because I think his game management is absolutely terrible. But I can't make an assessment on him until all these pieces are back. And you want to be careful about the draft process for the most part, unless, the obvious is there. On who do you bring in next year? Because if you have a high draft pick, that person coming in is going to be integral to your core, whatever that core is. Beyond made an interesting point about number one options. Like Beyond, I've studied history of the NBA a little bit as well. Steve Nash, multiple-time MVP, beat out Shaq 1 year. Shaq still upset and pissy over that he lost to Steve Nash the MVP race, okay? He never once, I don't know, in that run with Phoenix, averaged 20. He may have, but Steve Nash drove the bus for that team. Everybody knows it. Mari Stoudemire, he never played so well in his life until he was with Steve Nash in Phoenix. Same with Sean Marion. Those teams were fun. They were so easy to watch. And what you see from basketball today is from that era of the Phoenix Suns. Golden State took that model and it's just on steroids, more or less. And everyone tries to replicate the NBA. So Steve Nash, Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson, what are all these guys have in common? Well, we're all Hall of Famers, and 2 of the 3 have won titles. Steve Nash may have had one had Robert Horry not did what he did in the playoffs against the Spurs. For those that were watching about 20 years ago, you would know what I mean. Point is, number one options can come in many different ways. If Scottie is not the leading scorer on this team, and Kenyon and I have got messages before about he's going to average 30, 10, and 10 this year, stop. Stop putting those unrealistic expectations on this young man.
That's where the problem comes from, is that like you can't have. I'm okay with saying like let's grow and see what happens, and then like, but if we're gonna do that, then you have to do that. You can't go from that to, if anyone has anything but like praising the emperor that is him, then yeah, it straight up, you know what? It becomes cultish and it ruins the discourse of basketball related to talking about this team, and more specifically talking about Scottie Barnes. And that's kind of a sad thing. It's a thing that should be talked about, is like how the discourse of basketball went in here, but maybe not. We're getting long in the tooth here, but yeah, sorry, Coach.
No, just to finish my point, Samson Folk had put out, before the season, what do you think Scottie's averages will be? I've consistently said, I think 22, 8, and 7, block and a half, maybe a steal or something like that. It's incremental growth from the leap that he took from his second year to his third year. If he took that leap again, that would be all NBA, and kudos to him if he did take that jump. But sometimes that's a superstar massive jump. And from the first 4 games, I know it's a really small sample size. I don't know if he's taking that jump. There's still a ways to go. But 22, 8, and 7, those are borderline all-star numbers, and maybe it is an all-star. Had he not had gotten hurt, that might hurt him in his chances becoming an all-star, quite frankly, depending on how long he's going to be out for. But regardless, this is a young man. He's improving. He's developing. He has a long ways to go. Brady's got a long ways to go. Okay, he's still got a ways to go, especially maybe a bit more on the defensive end. And whoever we bring in next year is only going to be a rookie. So this team is rebuilding, is moving forward, as Beyond had said earlier. They ain't trying to win too many games this year because they know they have to think long term about this. I just want to see, let's see this starting lineup. Let's see this full team. Let's hopefully see it for 40 games. 50 would be ideal, but let's see if we can see it for 40 games to know exactly the puzzle pieces on this roster, on this core, and on this coaching staff, because Darko and staff is probably on the clock starting next year. And I'll say this one last point about Darko, about development, because they say about him being a development coach. Coaches can play a role in development. There's no question. And I think he deserves some credit, certainly, but the player also does as well. Brady Dick, I'm sure it's a bit of a mixture. RJ Barrett came into this system playing with Tom Thibodeau's system of just Randall and Brunson pick and roll all day. Barrett basically got shut out. It comes to Darko's system, a little bit more open, a little bit more fast-paced. It's been beneficial to him. So we just need to see more, and hopefully we do come December.
The other thing that I'll say is that for Scottie, each level of the pyramid that he rises up in this hierarchy, he needs to work that much more. It becomes exponential. I say this as someone who competed in an athletic sport at a fairly high level. I've told you guys this before. I haven't, not going to talk about it right now, but I have. And every single time you move to the next level of that thing, it's like, it's exponentially harder to get back to the top or get even near the top. And that's essentially where he is. He's now being keyed in by defenses, right? Yeah. And they were learning about him. So it's like, oh, okay, his handle's not good. Okay, let's pack the paint. Beat us.
Or pressure the handle.
Or pressure the handle. Beat us.
Here's the thing in all of this. If he is the number one on the scouting report, you're going to get the best defender for one. You're going to get the odd double team here and there. You got Grady Dick and Emmanuel Quickly, and now RJ Barrett with his efficiencies lately on the court. That opens up their game. And here's the thing, the beauty with Scottie. He ain't selfish.
True, but Coach, I'm gonna People say we're not adversarial. There you go. I'm going to push back right now. He isn't being defended by the best defender sometimes, though.
Sometimes, yeah.
Minnesota wasn't defending him with their best defender, who was, Jaden McDaniels covering. Or sorry, Jalen. I keep mixing it too.
No, it's Jaden. It's Jaden.
Yeah, Jaden. Okay, so yeah, he was covering Grady. Grady's off-ball gravity. In a way, now you could argue that it also, because Scottie's such a good passer or whatever, sure, fine. But that's who they had on him. So how do you now counter that? Now Scottie needs to learn those isolation pieces. You can't just say, oh, well, in theory, if you look at the game this particular way, like things are not going to be perfect for Scottie Barnes on the way to a championship. There never are. Injuries happen, things happen, and here's the other thing, is that if by, and I said it's going to take until year 6, but at some point, if you can't excel in those areas, if the perfect situation isn't there, you will fail every single time. It's just, that's how it is. To get to championship level status, which is presumably what I would hope most Raptors fans would like to go to and stay at, you need to face adversity along the way, and you need to make those steps. And this is part of it. This is why I said last week, you have to go by trial by combat. You have to go trial by fire, and it might break you along the way so that you can rebuild back, so you can go back to the drawing board and improve yourself. You expect that from every single player, right? There's going to be right now, perfect development opportunity for Grady and RJ is they don't have Scottie there to help set them up as they're moving around. But also, when he gets back, he has to go back and match that. Now it has to be like they're competing with each other to improve. And that's how you get there. We got a long ways to go. And like I said, the most important, one thing that I don't think you touched on enough, Coach, is the effort and energy needs to be there. That's all. He has to consistently be there and show up. Not one quarter, not 2, not 3, but 4 quarters every single time. I will say one final thing. Unfortunately for him, depending on how long he's out for, he will not have a chance to get All-NBA this year because of the amount of games played. I don't know if I saw him making that, but it is something to kind of point out. I did also see an article about it as well. That's just an art. That's a rule that the NBA has now. So yeah, Beyond, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is nothing to do with Scottie Barnes or any of that type of stuff. I've moved on. I just want to give a shout out to this guy. And I want to say, hey, listen, man,
very good.
Raptor fans, we've been through a lot. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the good times and kind of paraphrase Vince. We understand there's a lot of, for some, it's like bad blood still. But when it's all said and done, man, it's a game. When it's all said and done, this is just a sport that we enjoy. It's entertainment in some ways. You shouldn't be taking it home with you to kind of use a phrase. It is what it is. It happened like 20 years ago, whatever the case may be. When it's all said and done, it's very hard to have any history that you want to reflect on about the Raptors, about this guy's number being involved, him being involved. That's just a fact. So I'm glad at least they've come to some type of, connection and agreement, or whatever it is, with the franchise and with him. It was a beautiful moment yesterday. Really happy to see all some of the old players in this case here. Besides the gray bearded hair, man, hopefully you can still play right now, man. You can knock down 17-footers. So good to see that. Good to see the family. You've got some beautiful children, family, and glad to see Vince get his moment. As I said before, Vince, and even with me, who's a Tar Heel fan, watched Vince from college, knew how special he was. Even with me, he has times where I'm sitting there shaking my head with that dude. I ain't gonna lie. Quite honestly, he wasn't even my favorite player of the team. The guy with the other jersey, I have the white jersey with the number 1. The other number 1. That was my dude. But that said,
Grady or McGrady? Just kidding.
McGrady. Yeah, put the Mick on that one. Talk about number 1 for Raptors. I don't know, man. It ended up being guys I always root for a lot. But hopefully we have a better result with his number 1. But hey, man, shouts out to Vince Sandy. Half amazing. Beautiful day.
Yeah. Coach, your thoughts? Anything?
Great induction ceremony. I like how Vince was. He was very emotional. This was very good for his family. As Beyond said, it didn't end well here. at all. And I've said this before. I was at his return game when he's with the Nets, my first time visiting Toronto.
Well,
It was probably the craziest atmosphere I've ever been in, for
Well,
sure. Hearing 20,000 fans just yell Carter sucks, quite frankly. This was tough as a grade 10, 11 student to hear, like, man, this is like my idol. And I get it, he quit on the team. It was really hard. It was hard to hear, certainly, all that he had done for basketball in Canada. And I'm just glad that this has ended on a good note with Vince. Vince wanted it. I think a lot of fans wanted it. I think we need to honor, he's a pioneer to the Raptors. He put us on the map, whether people like it or not.
what's the
And
term? Closure?
closure is the term for it.
for sure.
Yes. And there will be more. There'll be more coming.
Yep.
I don't think their banners will be ripped down, but there'll be more coming.
Not
Sorry, I
going
had to do
there.
that.
Um,
That is-
what I'll say is that this is the first of many. We need to start celebrating our history. I think the history and the celebration of the history of the Raptors is about the fans more than the players, even though it does do stuff for the players. And we've talked about it on Basketball Rewind a couple times where we've pointed out that, like, here's the thing. When you've had a management team that has at times been a bit adversarial with how players have left, you have to start building that back. And it trickles through. It's like how you get situations where you get Hakeem working out back with the Rockets and training their young guys. This is how you hope that, like, a DeMar works with someone else down the line on their footwork, or a Lowry, when he retires, maybe he's an assistant coach somehow here. Like, that's how you get it. And that's how you get the top tier players, is you get the legends of your franchise kind of going through and you celebrate them. So it's about a game of chess in a way, and also it's well deserved for the franchise of 30 years to start celebrating these things rather than having Bon John or John Bon Jovi and all respect to him, but we can do better than that and a bunch of Leaf stuff.
Come on, man. Live in a prayer. Dead or alive. Come on, man.
I mean, hey, all respect. No, I'd like some Raptors up there as well.
I'll just say this just to wrap it up, call it a day. I think to give some perspective, 30 years for a team. I know sometimes Raptor fans have a way of, like, it's a weird phenomenon, Raptor fans. They badmouth their franchise so much. And one time I was talking to a buddy of mine who's a Knicks fan. And I kind of said, like, listen, let me tell you something. In the 30-year span the Raptors existed, I think I prefer to have the Raptors history than the Knicks history in that same 30-year span. And you had to think about it. And you say, like, you know what? You're right. Because that 30-year span, I'm not sure how many Knicks are actually getting retired. If you look at the Raptors history and the players that have come through here, like, there's franchise right now, God bless them in this case here, the Charlotte Hornets. Like, I mean, like, come on, man. It's not even close in this case here, like, the players. Or take whoever you want and take, in this case here. But the Raptors, for a young franchise, has had some, unbelievable talents come through here. And I think it's like one of these things where it's like, you really start thinking about, it's like, oh, damn. Like, you start thinking about it this way. Like game-changing type of talents coming through here. And I think sometimes we beat ourselves up as a fandom too much. And I think that's not even a Raptor thing. That's a city thing. Like, dude, stop with insecurity. Okay,
the people beat each other up too much about it too.
Yeah, the Raptors have had for a 30-year franchise, the Raptors have had a very, yes, there's been some moments where it's been comical. I ain't gonna lie. There's moments where it's like, geez, it's us. I get it. But if you kind of step back and look what we have, and even the players that might not be up there but are gonna be Hall of Famers from other teams, I just mentioned McGrady is one. It's impressive, man. I'll just leave it at that.
Very good. Well, that's an episode of Basketball Real. I think that's a pod, guys. That being said, like, comment, subscribe, buy a jersey. Not from us because we don't have a storefront, but if we get to 500, we might have a storefront. But
I'll have my RJ Barrett jersey December 1st, I think.
I I don't know if I'll be able to afford a jersey this year, but I would love to get a Raptors jersey. I do have an NBA jersey. I do not have a Raptors
Well,
jersey.
supposedly, my man Andre here, if he's listening when he watches this, he told me already the other day that I guess that this is like a collector's item because it's Champion. So I didn't realize, Champion doesn't
It
produce
is,
them.
yes.
Yes, I'm going to give a shout out to Andrew too. He's the guy that on Twitter who said Team Canada is selling jerseys basically half off. So I got one for like
That is
$80
true.
at the time, and you're not going to find a Team Canada jersey for anyone under $100. So
Absolutely. So that being said, take care, everyone. Stay well. Stay tuned in on the Raptors. And remember, on Basketball Rewind, we watch every single game and suffer through it. So, yeah, that's where it comes from. Take care, people. Peace. And we hope the best for the team.